right. My ladies, gather round would you risk it all for the truth, even if it meant pissing off the big shots. I'm your old pal, Joan Doe, 58, born and bred in New York, where the streets are as tough as my ex's heart. Picture me in my Brooklyn dive bar, sipping a shitty beer, spinning yarns for you gals, my favorite crew of wise, witty dames who've seen it all. Tonight, I'm dishing a tale about Harper Lewis, a scrappy gal who kicked corporate ass and found love in the chaos. It's raw, real, and a little fucked up, just like life. So, grab your wine, leave a comment with your own badass stories, and hit that subscribe button to keep this old man ranting. Let's dive into Screw the Fine Print. You're gonna love this one. My ladies, the air in the 50th floor boardroom of Halden Corp was thick with the scent of overpriced cologne and unspoken power plays. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan's skyline, a glittering maze of steel and ambition that stretched toward the horizon. Inside, a dozen executives in tailored suits sat around a walnut table so polished it could double as a mirror. At the head, Nolan Halden, the 35-year-old CEO, leaned back in his leather chair, his sharp blue eyes scanning the room like a hawk. His jet-black suit screamed money, but his expression said he'd already sized up everyone and found them wanting. Richard Voss, the head of legal, was mid-presentation, his voice dripping with the smug confidence of a man who'd never been challenged. A massive screen behind him flashed numbers and charts about Halden Corp's $3 billion acquisition of Zenith Innovations, a tech firm with patents that could make or break their future. Voss gestured at the screen like a game show host. This contract is ironclad. Folks, Zenith's IP will be the crown jewel of our portfolio. We're talking billions in revenue by 2027. The room nodded. A chorus of bobbleheads in Brooks Brothers suits. Except for one person. Harper Lewis, 24, stood at the back, clutching a dog-eared folder, her second-hand blazer, bought for $12 at a Goodwill in Brooklyn, pinched her shoulders, and her flats, scuffed from years of subway commutes, squeaked faintly when she shifted her weight. She was the only intern in the room, a nobody who'd snuck in to deliver coffee and take notes. Her dark brown eyes darted to the contract on the table, specifically page 132, clause 17.4b. She'd read it 3 times last night, her cheap desk lamp flickering as she scribbled notes. It wasn't just a clause. It was a goddamn trap. Voss droned on, but Harper's heart pounded like a jackhammer. Her palms were sweaty, her throat dry. She glanced at Elaine Carter, her supervisor, a stern woman with gold-rimmed glasses who'd told her to stay invisible. But the words on page 132 burned in her mind. Zenith retains exclusive usage rights over core patents for 5 years, extendable indefinitely under undefined technical conditions. If Halden signed this, they'd be handing Zenith the keys to their future. "Excuse me," Harper said, her voice cutting through the room like a knife. Every head turned. Voss froze, his pointer hovering midair. Nolan's eyes snapped to her, unblinking, like she'd just thrown a grenade. Harper's knees wobbled, but she stepped forward, gripping her folder like a shield. Clause 17.4b is a damn landmine. If we sign this, Zenith can lock us out of their patents forever. The silence was deafening. A director coughed. Another shifted in his seat, his Rolex glinting under the fluorescent lights. Voss's face turned the color of a ripe tomato. "Who the hell are you?" he barked, his New York accent thick with disdain. "Harper Lewis, legal intern," she said, her voice steadier now, though her heart was doing backflips. "I've read the contract. That clause lets Zenith extend their patent rights indefinitely if they meet some vague technical conditions. It's a loophole big enough to drive a truck through. We'll lose the IP, the whole point of this deal." Voss laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "You're out of your league, kid. This contract's been vetted by the best legal minds in the city. Sit your ass down before you embarrass yourself." Harper didn't budge. She flipped open her folder, her notes scrawled in black ink. Page 132, paragraph 3. It says, "Zenith can renew their rights if they demonstrate ongoing technical relevance." No definition, no criteria. They could claim anything new software, a firmware update, and we're screwed. "You're welcome for the heads up." The room erupted in murmurs. A woman in a red power suit whispered to her neighbor. "Is she serious?" Elaine's face paled, her lips a thin line. Nolan leaned forward, his fingers steepled, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Harper thought he might back her up, but then Voss slammed his hand on the table. "You think you're smarter than my entire team," he roared. 3 months of work, and some intern in a thrift store suit's gonna school us. Get her out of here. Elaine." Elaine stood, her heels clicking as she grabbed Harper's arm. "Lewis, let's go. Now." Harper yanked her arm free, her eyes locked on Nolan. "You're the CEO, Mr. Halden. You want to risk billions on a clause that's basically a blank check to Zenith, or you gonna listen to the one person in this room who's not kissing ass?" The room gasped. A director muttered, "Jesus Christ." Nolan's jaw tightened, but his gaze didn't waver. There was something in his eyes, curiosity, maybe, or annoyance. Harper couldn't tell. Elaine dragged her toward the door, hissing, "You're done, Lewis." As the glass door slammed shut, Harper stood in the hallway, her breath ragged. Her hands shook as she clutched her folder. "What the hell did I just do?" she whispered. Inside, she could hear Voss resuming his presentation, his voice smug again. But Nolan's silence lingered in her mind, heavy and unsettling. 3 days earlier, Harper Lewis stepped off the F train at 34th Street, her flats slapping the grimy subway platform. The air smelled of stale pretzels and diesel, and the morning crowd shoved past her, a blur of briefcases and earbuds. She adjusted her blazer, the sleeves a half-inch too short, and checked her reflection in a shop window. "You look like you're auditioning for a low-budget lawyer flick," she muttered, smoothing her ponytail. Halden Corp's tower loomed ahead, a glass monolith that screamed money. 50 floors of corporate bullshit, and Harper was about to walk in as a legal intern, the lowest rung on a very tall ladder. She'd clawed her way here from a public law school in Queens, fueled by a full scholarship and a stubborn belief that the law could still mean something. Her mom, battling chronic arthritis in a cramped Brooklyn apartment, was counting on her to make it. No pressure. Right. The lobby was a cathedral of marble and steel, the air-conditioned chill making Harper shiver. A group of employees in sleek suits breezed past. One of them, a blonde in a tight dress, giving her a once-over. "Did someone order a delivery?" the woman whispered to her colleague, loud enough for Harper to hear. They laughed, their heels clicking like gunfire. Harper gripped her cheap tote bag, her knuckles white. "You don't need them to like you," she told herself. "You just need to survive." The receptionist, a model straight out of Vogue type, barely looked up. Name Harper Lewis, new intern, legal department. The woman typed, her nails clicking. Oh, the replacement. Figures they're so desperate they'll take anyone. She slid a badge across the counter. Floor 42. Don't lose it. And don't wander. Harper nodded, ignoring the jab. The elevator ride was a crush of suits and small talk about stocks and Hampton's weekends. She squeezed into a corner, feeling like a kid who'd snuck into the grown-ups' party. When the doors opened on 42, she nearly collided with a guy in a gray suit holding a Starbucks cup. "Watch it," he snapped, then squinted at her. "Who are you, janitor intern?" Harper said, her voice calm but her eyes sharp. "Legal department, and you're the coffee guy." He smirked, walking away. "Good luck, Goodwill chick." The legal office was a maze of glass cubicles and humming printers. Harper's desk was a folding table wedged next to a photocopier that smelled like burnt toner. Elaine Carter, her supervisor, didn't bother looking up from her screen. "Miss Lewis, your job is to read, file, and shut up." "Got it. Got it, ma'am," Harper said, hiding her excitement. She dreamed of working at a place like Halden, where billion-dollar deals were inked and lawyers were sharks. She wasn't here for glory, just to learn, and maybe, one day, make a difference. Her first task was a stack of documents for the Zenith deal. She dove in, her pen scratching notes on clauses she'd studied in school. It was dry as hell, but Harper loved it. Each page was a puzzle, and she was damn good at solving puzzles. By midnight, while the office emptied out, she was still there, her desk lamp casting shadows on clause 17.4b. Something about it felt off, slippery, like a snake waiting to strike. Back in the present, Harper sat at her desk, the photocopier humming beside her. Her outburst in the boardroom felt like a fever dream. Elaine had reamed her out in the hallway, warning her to never pull that stunt again. But Harper couldn't shake the feeling that she was right. That clause was a ticking time bomb, and she'd just lit the fuse. She opened her laptop, pulling up her notes. The legal jargon swam before her eyes, but she forced herself to focus. If she was going down, she'd make damn sure she had proof. A shadow fell over her desk, and she looked up to see Greg, the coffee guy, smirking. "Heard you blew up the boardroom," he said, sipping his latte. "Congrats, Goodwill chick. You just painted a target on your back." "Thanks for the pep talk," Harper said, not looking up. "Don't you have a frappuccino to fetch?" He chuckled, walking away. Harper's phone buzzed a text from her mom. "You okay, baby? Don't work too late." She typed back, "I'm fine, Mom. Just fighting the good fight." But her fingers trembled. She'd risked everything for a clause nobody else seemed to care about. Across town, in his penthouse office, Nolan Halden stared at the city lights. His assistant, James, stood at the door, holding a tablet. "You wanted info on the intern." Sir Nolan didn't turn. "Harper Lewis. What's her deal?" James tapped his screen. "Age 24, public law school, full scholarship, no social media, no scandals, lives in Brooklyn with her mom, who's got health issues. Oh, and she turned down a job at Kessler and Dunn because they represented a shady corporation, said she doesn't work for liars." Nolan raised an eyebrow, a rare flicker of interest crossing his face. "She said that in a school paper interview." "Yeah." Nolan's lips twitched, almost a smile. "Either she's got balls of steel, or she's the dumbest kid I've ever met. Keep an eye on her." James nodded. Leaving, Nolan turned back to the window, Harper's voice echoing in his mind. "You gonna listen to the one person not kissing ass?" He didn't know if she was a genius or a liability, but for the first time in years, someone had surprised him. Harper trudged up the stairs to her apartment in Flatbush, the hallway smelling of mildew and fried onions. It was past 11 p.m., and the city's pulse throbbed outside car horns, distant sirens, the rumble of the subway. Her apartment was a shoebox peeling wallpaper, a sagging couch, and a kitchen table where her mom, Mrs. Lewis, sat with a cup of tea. "You look beat, baby," her mom said. Her voice warm but tired, her hands, gnarled from arthritis, cradled the mug. "Rough day." Harper dropped her bag, forcing a smile. "I might have just screwed myself." "Mom." "Called out a big shot in a meeting. Probably getting fired tomorrow." Mrs. Lewis's eyes softened. "You spoke the truth, didn't you?" "Yeah," Harper said, sinking into a chair. But truth doesn't pay the rent. Or your meds?" Her mom reached for her hand. "You listen to me, Harper Lewis. You've been fighting since you were a kid, school bullies, lousy teachers, this whole damn city. You spoke up today because that's who you are. Don't you dare apologize for it." Harper's throat tightened. She nodded, unable to speak. After her mom went to bed, she stood at the window, the Manhattan skyline a distant glow. The city was beautiful, ruthless, and hers. "If I'm going down," she whispered, "I'm going down swinging." The 42nd floor of Halden Corp was a pressure cooker disguised as an office. Glass cubicles gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights, and the constant hum of printers and ringing phones created a low-grade buzz that drilled into Harper Lewis's skull. Her desk, a folding table shoved against a photocopier that reeked of burnt toner, was buried under a stack of legal documents, each one thicker than a phone book. It was Monday, a week after she'd dropped her bombshell about Clause 17.4b in the boardroom, and the fallout was starting to feel like a slow-motion car crash. Harper rubbed her eyes, her laptop screen blurring. It was 9 p.m., and the office had mostly emptied out, leaving behind the faint smell of stale coffee and someone's forgotten takeout. Her second-hand blazer hung on the back of her chair, the sleeves rolled up, her ponytail was coming loose, strands sticking to her neck. She'd been at it since 7 a.m., combing through the Zenith contract again, double-checking her notes on that damn clause. Elaine Carter, her supervisor, had dumped a mountain of extra work on her with a single sentence. "Prove you're not just a loudmouth, Lewis. Prove it," Harper muttered, mimicking Elaine's clipped tone. "Sure, no problem. I'll just read 1,000 pages by tomorrow and not, die of exhaustion." She grabbed her water bottle, only to find it empty. Great. Perfect. The office wasn't just quiet, it was hostile. Since her outburst in the boardroom, her co-workers had turned her into a pariah. Greg, the Starbucks guy with the permanent smirk, had started calling her Goodwill chick to her face, and it caught on like wildfire. During lunch breaks in the break room, she'd catch whispers and sidelong glances from the other paralegals, their designer bags and manicured nails a stark contrast to her scuffed flats and chipped polish. One of them, a guy named Tyler with a frat boy vibe, had muttered, "Who let the charity case in here loud enough for her to hear?" Harper had bitten her tongue, focusing on her homemade sandwich, but it stung like hell. She wasn't naive. Growing up in Flatbush, Brooklyn, she'd dealt with plenty of side-eye kids at school mocking her thrift store clothes, teachers assuming she'd never make it out of the neighborhood. But Halden Corp was different. This wasn't just a job. It was her shot to prove she belonged in the law, to make her mom's sacrifices worth it. And now, it felt like everyone was waiting for her to crash and burn. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mom, "Baby, you eating? Don't let those suits get to you." Harper smiled faintly, typing back, "I'm good. Mom, just grinding." But she wasn't good. The weight of the past week, her boardroom stunt, the whispers, the endless work was crushing her. And then there was Nolan Halden, the CEO whose icy stare still haunted her. He hadn't fired her yet, but his silence was worse. Was he watching her? Waiting for her to screw up? She opened an email from Elaine, sent at 8:45 p.m. "Lewis, I need your analysis of the Zenith contract's IP clauses by 9 a.m. tomorrow. No excuses." Harper groaned, leaning back in her chair. "You gotta be kidding me." The photocopier kicked on, spitting out pages with a mechanical whine. She glared at it. "You and me both. Buddy, no sleep for the wicked." The next morning, Harper was back at her desk by 7:30, a lukewarm coffee from a street cart in hand. She'd pulled an all-nighter, her apartment's flickering lamp keeping her company as she typed up her analysis. Her eyes burned, and her head throbbed. But the report was done, 10 pages of detailed notes on why Clause 17.4b was a disaster waiting to happen. She hit send on the email to Elaine, praying it was enough to keep her in the game. As she waited for a response, she started on another task, drafting an internal memo for the legal team. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, summarizing a recent case on patent disputes. She was halfway through when Greg sauntered by, his Starbucks cup steaming. "Still here? Goodwill chick. Thought you'd be out on your ass by now." Harper didn't look up. "Sorry to disappoint. Greg, don't you have a latte to Instagram?" He chuckled, leaning against her desk. "You know, you're cute when you're pissed. But word of advice, keep mouthing off, and you'll be back to flipping burgers in Brooklyn." Her jaw tightened, but she kept typing. "Thanks for the career counseling. Now get lost." Greg smirked, walking off. Harper's hands shook as she finished the memo. She reread it, her tired brain foggy, and hit send to the legal team's group email. It wasn't until 10 minutes later, when she heard snickers from the cubicles nearby, that her stomach dropped. She opened her sent folder and froze, tucked into the memo. In a footnote she'd meant to delete was a line she'd written half asleep. "Voss's ego is bigger than his brain. He's gonna tank this deal if he doesn't listen." "Oh, shit," Harper whispered, her heart plummeting. She'd sent it to the entire legal department, 40 people, including Richard Voss himself. Her phone pinged with replies, LOL. "Who is this intern ballsy move? Kid? Voss is gonna lose it." Before she could even think about damage control, Elaine's voice barked from across the room. "Lewis, my office. Now." Harper stood, her legs wobbly, and followed Elaine into a glass-walled office that felt like a fishbowl. Elaine shut the door, her gold-rimmed glasses glinting. "You want to explain why you just sent a memo calling the head of legal an egomaniac?" "It was an accident," Harper said, her voice small. "I didn't mean to send that part. I was up all night." "Save it," Elaine snapped. "You've been here a week, and you're already causing chaos. First the boardroom stunt. Now this. You're on thin ice. Lewis, one more screw-up, and you're out." Harper swallowed, her throat tight. "I'm sorry, ma'am. It won't happen again. It better not." Elaine pointed at the door. Get back to work, and keep your damn opinions to yourself. Harper nodded, slipping out. The office was buzzing now, co-workers whispering behind their screens. Tyler leaned over to Greg, loud enough for her to hear, Bet she's gone by Friday. Harper sank into a chair, her face burning. She opened her laptop, trying to focus, but her mind was spiraling. That memo was a stupid mistake, one she couldn't afford. She'd spent years proving she was more than the Brooklyn girl everyone expected to fail, and now she'd handed them ammunition. By lunchtime, Harper needed air. She grabbed her tote and headed to a coffee shop on the Lower East Side, a hole in the wall with mismatched chairs and the smell of fresh espresso. Maya, her best friend since high school, was waiting at a corner table, her dreadlocks pulled into a bun. Maya worked at a non-profit helping low-income families, and her no-bullshit attitude was exactly what Harper needed. You look like you got hit by a bus, Maya said, sliding a latte across the table. What's up? Harper slumped into her chair, the wooden seat creaking. I'm screwing everything up, Maya. I called out a shady clause in a meeting, and now everyone at work hates me. Then I accidentally sent an email calling my boss's boss a jackass. I'm one step from getting canned. Maya laughed, her eyes crinkling. Damn, girl, you don't do things halfway. Why'd you go nuclear in that meeting? Because it was the truth, Harper said, stirring her coffee. That clause could cost the company billions. I couldn't just sit there. Maya leaned back, studying her. You know why those corporate pricks hate you, 'cause you're real. You're not one of their Ivy League drones. You're Harper freaking Lewis, the girl who turned down Kessler and Dunn because they were shady as hell. Harper sighed. Yeah, and that's why I'm broke. Smarts don't pay Mom's medical bills. I need this job. Maya, if I get fired... Her voice cracked, and she looked away, out the window at the street where a vendor was hawking knockoff sunglasses. Maya reached for her hand. You're not getting fired. You're too good for that place. But you gotta play smart, not just loud. Those suits don't care about truth, they care about power. You want to win? You gotta beat them at their own game. Harper nodded, her chest tight. I'm trying, but it feels like I'm drowning. You're not drowning, Maya said firmly. You're fighting. And you've been fighting since we were kids. Remember when you stood up to that bully who stole my lunch money? You were, what, 10? You've got that fire. Harper, don't let those assholes snuff it out. Harper managed a small smile. You're gonna make me cry in this damn coffee shop. Good, Maya said, grinning. Tears are free. Now drink your latte and go kick some corporate ass. Back at Halden Corp. Harper pushed through the revolving doors, the lobby's marble floor reflecting her tired face. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor was suffocating, filled with the chatter of co-workers who fell silent when she stepped in. She returned to her desk, the photocopier still humming like a mocking chorus. Her inbox had a new email from Elaine. Your analysis was adequate. Keep working on the Zenith file. No more mistakes. Adequate. Harper muttered. Gee, thanks. She opened the Zenith contract again, her pen scratching notes. She was halfway through a page when a shadow fell over her desk. She looked up to see Daniel Voss, a young paralegal with glasses and a nervous smile. He was Richard Voss's younger brother, but quieter, less of a blowhard. Hey, "Harper," he said, glancing around like he was breaking some unspoken rule. "I, saw your memo. The part about my brother. You weren't wrong." Harper blinked, caught off guard. "You're not mad?" Daniel shrugged, pushing up his glasses. "Rich is a lot, but I read your notes on 17.4b. You're right about that clause. It's shady as hell. Just don't give up." "Okay." He slipped a post-it note onto her desk and walked away. Harper picked it up, her heart lifting slightly. Scrawled in blue ink was a single line: "Keep fighting." She tucked the note into her pocket, a tiny spark of hope in the chaos. But as she glanced around the office, the glass walls, the whispers, the weight of her mistake, she felt the walls closing in. She headed to the subway, the platform crowded with commuters, the air thick with exhaust. The train screeched to a stop, and she squeezed in, standing by the door. As the city blurred past, she thought of Maya's words, of Daniel's note, of her mom's faith in her. "Maybe I don't belong here," she whispered, her breath fogging the window. "But I'm not quitting yet." The conference room on the 50th floor of Halden Corp was a different beast at 11 p.m. The Manhattan skyline glittered outside, a sea of neon and ambition. But inside, the air was stale, heavy with the smell of ink and leftover Thai takeout. Harper Lewis sat across from Nolan Halden, the CEO whose presence still made her stomach twist. Papers were strewn across the table, drafts of the Zenith Innovations contract, marked up with Harper's meticulous notes. Her second-hand blazer was slung over her chair, her sleeves rolled up, and her eyes burned from hours of staring at fine print. For 2 weeks, since her boardroom outburst about Clause 17.4b, Harper had been pulled into late-night sessions with Nolan to revise the $3 billion deal. It was surreal, sitting across from a man who could fire her with a snap of his fingers, but also, strangely, fun. Nolan wasn't the ice-cold tyrant she'd expected. He was sharp, relentless, and when she caught him off guard, capable of a dry humor that made her smirk. "You read contracts like they're freaking poetry." "Halden?" Harper said, circling a vague phrase in the technology transfer section. "This line's so flowery, it could be in a rom-com. Zenith's hiding something." "It's hiding." Nolan leaned back, his black suit jacket unbuttoned, a rare crack in his polished armor, "and you argue like a street fighter." "Lewis, what's it hiding?" She tapped her pen on the table, her Brooklyn accent creeping in. "They're stalling. This conditional transfer crap means they can delay handing over source code for years. We need hard deadlines, or we're screwed." He raised an eyebrow, a ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. "Screwed. Huh. You kiss your mom with that mouth." Harper snorted, caught off guard. "Only when she's not yelling at me to eat more. You gonna fix this clause or keep playing word cop?" Nolan grabbed the document, scanning it. "I'll fix it, but you're writing the revision." "I'm not your secretary." "Fine, boss," she said, mock saluting. Their eyes met, and for a split second, something flickered, something that made Harper's chest tighten. She looked away, focusing on her notes. "He's your CEO, not your buddy. Chill." The late nights had built a fragile trust between them. Nolan pushed her, questioning every suggestion. But he listened, really listened. It was more than she'd gotten from anyone else at Halden Corp. where her coworkers still whispered Goodwill chick behind her back. Elaine Carter had grudgingly praised her work, and Daniel Voss, the quiet paralegal, had slipped her another encouraging note. "You're changing things. Keep going." But the rest of the 42nd floor treated her like a ticking bomb. As they wrapped up, Nolan stood, buttoning his jacket. "Not bad. Lewis, you're almost worth the headache." "Almost." Harper grinned, packing her bag. "I'm a goddamn bargain." "Halden." He chuckled, a low, rare sound that made her heart skip. "Get some sleep. You look like you're auditioning for a zombie flick." She rolled her eyes, heading for the elevator. The doors closed, and she leaned against the wall, exhaustion hitting like a freight train. Her reflection stared back, bags under her eyes, ponytail fraying. But she was smiling. For the first time in weeks, she felt like she belonged. The next morning, Harper was back at her desk on the 42nd floor, the photocopier humming its usual annoying tune. She was halfway through a new batch of Zenith documents when her phone buzzed with a news alert. Halden Corp stock plummets. After confidential document leak. Her stomach dropped. She clicked the link, scanning the article. Someone had leaked internal memos about the Zenith deal, including financial projections that made Halden look desperate. The internet was eating it up, with ex-posts screaming about corporate incompetence. Whispers rippled through the office. Greg, the Starbucks guy, leaned over a cubicle, smirking. Somebody's in deep shit now. Harper's heart raced. Leaks were a death sentence in this world. She opened her email, praying it wasn't her fault. When Elaine's voice cut through the noise, Lewis, "Boardroom." Now Harper grabbed her bag, her flat squeaking as she hurried to the elevator. The ride to the 50th floor felt like an eternity, the other employees avoiding her eyes. When she stepped into the boardroom, the atmosphere was a guillotine. Nolan sat at the head, his face a granite mask. Richard Voss, head of legal, stood red-faced, clutching a stack of papers. Elaine looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. And then there was Isabel Langley, a new senior legal advisor, standing by the screen with a smile sharp enough to cut glass. Harper had seen her around a blonde in designer dresses, all charm and venom. Rumor was, she and Nolan went way back. "Sit," Elaine barked, pointing to a chair. Harper sat, her hands clenching her bag. Isabel clicked a remote, and an email appeared on the screen. Harper's breath caught. It was from her workstation. Time-stamped 2 days ago. Sending a zip file of Zenith memos to an external address. The subject line read, "For your review." "I'm sorry." "Nolan," Isabel said, her voice dripping with fake regret. "But your intern's a snake. This email was traced to Miss Lewis's computer. She sent confidential data to a competitor, likely for a payout." Harper's blood ran cold. "That's bullshit," she burst out, standing. "I didn't send that. I don't even have access to half those files." Voss slammed his hand on the table. "You've been a problem since day one." Lewis, mouthing off, screwing up memos, and now this. "You're done." Harper's eyes darted to Nolan, desperate. "Mr. Halden, you know me. I've been killing myself on this deal. I'd never do this." Nolan's gaze was unreadable, his fingers tapping the table. The room waited, the silence crushing. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and sharp. "Lewis, You're out. Security will escort you. HR will handle the rest. Harper's heart shattered. You're serious? She whispered, her voice breaking. After everything She stopped, swallowing the words, swallowing the everything we worked on, everything I thought you saw in me. Nolan didn't flinch. I can't take that risk. Lewis, I'm sorry. Isabel's smile widened. A queen claiming her throne. Elaine stood, grabbing Harper's arm. Let's go. Harper yanked free, her eyes burning. I didn't do this, she said, her voice trembling but fierce. And you're all gonna regret this when the truth comes out. She grabbed her bag, head high, and marched out. The door slammed behind her, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Security met her in the hallway, 2 burly guys in cheap suits. They followed her to the 42nd floor, where she packed her desk under the stares of her co-workers. Greg leaned against a cubicle, smirking. Told you. Goodwill chick. You don't belong here. Fuck off. Greg. Harper snapped, shoving her notes into her bag. She caught Daniel's eye across the room, his face pale. But he looked away. The guards led her to the lobby, the marble floor cold under her feet. As she stepped outside, the city hit her like a slap horns blaring, pedestrians shoving past, the air thick with exhaust. She stood on the sidewalk, her bag heavy, her chest tighter than a vice. Harper's apartment in Flatbush was dark when she got home, the only light coming from the TV flickering in the living room. Her mom, Mrs. Lewis, sat on the couch, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea. The place smelled of chamomile and old paint, a familiar comfort that now felt hollow. Baby, her mom said, looking up. You're home early. Everything okay? Harper dropped her bag, her throat closing. She sank onto the couch, her flat still on. I got fired. Mom, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. They think I leaked documents. I didn't do it, but they didn't care. Mrs. Lewis set her mug down, her gnarled hands reaching for Harper's. Oh, honey, who did this to you? Doesn't matter, Harper said, tears spilling over. I thought the law was about truth, Mom, justice. But it's just a rich man's game, and I lost. Her mom pulled her close, stroking her hair. You listen to me, Harper Lewis. When I was your age, I got fired from a cleaning job because a manager said I stole a watch. I didn't. But nobody believed me. I cried for weeks. But I kept going. You're stronger than I was. You're gonna get back up. Harper shook her head, her voice muffled. I don't know if I can. I trusted them. I trusted him. Who's him? Nobody, Harper said quickly, wiping her eyes. She couldn't say Nolan's name, couldn't admit how much his betrayal hurt. Those late nights, his rare smiles, the way he'd listened they'd meant something to her. And he'd thrown her out like trash. Her mom squeezed her hand. You're not done. Baby, you're just starting. But you need to rest. We'll figure this out. Harper nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. She went to her room, a tiny space with a sagging mattress and a desk cluttered with law books. Her diploma hung on the wall, a reminder of a dream that now felt like a joke. She pulled it down, tossing it into a drawer. Screw you, she muttered, not sure if she meant the law, Halden Corp, or herself. She opened her laptop, staring at a job listing for a non-profit in New Jersey. It paid half what she'd made at Halden, but it was honest work, helping people who'd been screwed over like her. She hit apply, her hands shaking. Time to get out of this city, she whispered, across Manhattan. Nolan Halden sat in his penthouse office, the city lights sprawling below like a chessboard he'd always controlled. His desk was bare except for a single email termination notice. Harper Lewis. His jaw clenched, his fingers drumming the wood. Isabel had presented airtight evidence, an email from Harper's computer, server logs, timestamps. It was clean. Too clean. He remembered Harper's face in the boardroom, her voice breaking. You know me. He'd wanted to believe her, but the board was breathing down his neck, the stock market in free fall. He'd had no choice. Or had he? James, his assistant, knocked and entered, holding a tablet. Sir, the press conference is set for tomorrow. You're addressing the leak. Anything else? Nolan didn't look up. The intern. Lewis. You sure about her file? James hesitated. Everything checked out. No red flags. But the evidence, it's solid. Nolan's eyes narrowed. Too solid. Dig deeper. I want every server log, every access record. Something's off. James nodded. Leaving. Nolan stood, walking to the window. He saw Harper's eyes again, fierce, betrayed, pleading. For the first time in years, he felt a pang of doubt. He'd built Halden Corp by trusting his gut. But this time, his gut was screaming he'd made a mistake. A big one. The community center in West Orange, New Jersey, was a far cry from the glass towers of Manhattan. Its white stucco walls were peeling, the playground outside overgrown with weeds, and the air smelled faintly of burnt toast from a kitchen where volunteers baked cookies for after-school programs. Harper Lewis stood in a cramped classroom, a whiteboard marker in her hand, teaching a group of teenagers about basic legal rights. Her jeans were faded, her button-up shirt slightly wrinkled, but her eyes, though tired, had a spark that hadn't been there 3 weeks ago, when Halden Corp had chewed her up and spit her out. All right. Y'all, Harper said, her Brooklyn accent softened by exhaustion. If you get a contract like for a job or an apartment, read every damn word. Companies love sneaking in fine print to screw you over. Who's got an example? A girl with braids raised her hand. My mom signed a lease, and they jacked up the rent after 6 months. Said it was in the contract, but she didn't see it. Exactly, Harper said, nodding. That's why you gotta be your own lawyer. You. Check the clauses, ask questions, and don't trust a smile. She wrote, read the fine print on the board, underlining it twice. The kids laughed, one boy calling out, You sound like my grandma. Miss Harper. Yeah, well, your grandma's probably smarter than most CEOs I've met. Harper shot back, grinning. The room felt warm, alive, a stark contrast to the cold cubicles of Halden Corp. Here, she wasn't Goodwill chick or a disgraced intern. She was just Harper, helping kids who reminded her of herself, scrappy, underestimated, fighting for a shot. 3 weeks ago, after being fired for a leak, she didn't commit. Harper had left New York City, her dreams of becoming a lawyer in tatters. She'd taken a job at this non-profit, assisting families with legal disputes, evictions, wage theft, the kind of small battles that never made headlines but broke hearts. The pay was a fraction of her Halden salary, barely enough to keep up with her mom's arthritis meds. But it felt honest, real. For the first time since that boardroom betrayal, she was sleeping through the night. But the scars remained. At night, in her tiny apartment in West Orange, Harper would lie on a creaky mattress, the hum of a nearby diner's neon sign filtering through her window, and think of Nolan Halden, his cold dismissal. I can't take that risk. Lewis cut deeper than Isabel Langley's smug victory. She'd trusted him, believed those late-night contract sessions meant something. Stupid. To cope. She'd started an anonymous blog called The Fine Print, spilling her anger and insights about corporate greed. Posts like "How Companies Screw You" with one sentence had gone viral on X, with thousands of comments from people sharing their own stories of being burned by the system. It was her therapy, her middle finger to Halden Corp and everyone in it. Miss Harper. A kid's voice pulled her back. The boy, a lanky 14-year-old named Jamal, waved a hand. "You okay?" You zoned out. "Yeah, I'm good," Harper said, forcing a smile. "Just thinking about how much I hate shady contracts." "All right, let's wrap up. Homework, find one clause in any ad you see and tell me why it's fishy. Go eat some cookies." As the kids filed out, Harper erased the whiteboard, the marker squeaking. She glanced at her phone. No messages, just a text from her mom from earlier. "Proud of you, baby. Keep helping those kids." Harper's throat tightened. She was trying, but part of her still felt like she'd failed. Not just at Halden, but at the law itself. She'd spent years believing it could be a force, only to be branded a traitor and tossed out. Meanwhile, in Manhattan, Nolan Halden's penthouse office was a prison of glass and steel. The city lights sprawled below, a glittering reminder of the empire he'd built. But tonight, he felt trapped. His desk was littered with reports, but his eyes were fixed on one, a server log analysis from Halden's IT team. The words burned into his brain. Email sent from Harper Lewis's workstation was spoofed. Originating IP traced to Isabel Langley's account. Nolan's jaw clenched, his fingers crumpling the paper. Isabel, his old college friend turned senior legal advisor, had framed Harper. The leak confidential Zenith memos that had tanked Halden's stock was her doing, not Harper's. Worse. Isabel had funneled data to a competitor, Mark Reynolds, a former rival of Nolan's who'd always resented his success. The evidence was airtight timestamps, access logs, even a deleted email where Isabel outlined her plan to neutralize the intern problem. Son of a bitch, Nolan muttered, standing. He paced to the window, the city's pulse mocking his own chaos. 3 weeks ago, he'd fired Harper without a second thought, swayed by Isabel's polished lies and the board's pressure. He could still see Harper's face, eyes blazing, voice breaking. "You know me." He'd ignored her, chosen the safe play. And now, the truth was slapping him in the face. He hit the intercom. "James, get in here." His assistant, a wiry man with a perpetual 5 o'clock shadow, appeared in seconds, tablet in hand. "Sir Isabel Langley," Nolan said, his voice like ice. "I want her in the boardroom in 20 minutes, and pull every record of her communications with Mark Reynolds." "Now," James nodded, sensing the storm. Anything else, Harper Lewis? Nolan said, quieter. Where is she? James hesitated. HR says she left New York after the termination. No forwarding address. Her apartment in Brooklyn's empty. Nolan's chest tightened. Find her. Check her school. Hospitals. Anywhere she might have gone. I don't care what it takes. As James left, Nolan sank into his chair, Harper's betrayal replaying in his mind. He'd failed her, and the guilt was a weight he couldn't shake. He opened his laptop, pulling up a blog he'd stumbled across on X the Fine Print. The latest post, titled, When Truth Doesn't Matter, was a gut punch. They'll call you a liar, a thief, anything to protect their power. But the truth is, a stubborn bastard it always comes out. Nolan didn't know for sure, but the voice sharp, defiant, unmistakably Brooklyn, sounded like Harper. Harper sat at a wobbly table in the community center's break room, a cup of lukewarm coffee in her hands. The room was cluttered with donated books and a bulletin board plastered with kids' drawings. Maya, her best friend, had driven up from New York for a visit, and they were catching up over a bag of bodega chips. You're killing it out here, Maya said, popping a chip in her mouth. These kids love you, but you look like you're carrying the damn world. Girl. Harper sighed, staring into her coffee. I'm trying. Maya, this place, it's good. Real. But I keep thinking about Halden. How they screwed me over. I thought I could change things, be the lawyer who fights for what's right. Yeah. Now I'm teaching kids how to read leases because I got burned. Maya leaned forward, her dreadlocks brushing the table. You didn't get burned. Harper, you got set up. Those corporate assholes couldn't handle you, so they played dirty. But you're still you. That blog of yours, it's blowing up. People are listening. Harper shrugged. It's just words. Doesn't change what happened. Bullshit, Maya said, pointing a chip at her. You're reaching people who've been screwed like you. That's power. But you gotta decide, are you done with law, or are you gonna fight back? Before Harper could answer, her phone buzzed. An email from an unknown address, forwarded by Daniel Voss, the paralegal from Halden. It was a server log snippet, showing an email sent from her account had originated elsewhere. A note from Daniel read, You were right. It wasn't you. I'm sorry I didn't speak up. Harper's heart raced. Someone was digging, and she had a hunch who. Back at Halden Corp. The boardroom was a battlefield. Isabel Langley stood by the table, her red dress as sharp as her smile, but her eyes flickered with nerves. Nolan sat at the head, the IT report in front of him. The room was empty except for James, who stood by the door, tablet ready. Nolan. What's this about? Isabel asked, her voice smooth but strained. I was about to head to a client dinner. Cut the crap. Isabel, Nolan said, sliding the report across the table. Explain this. You spoofed an email from Harper Lewis's account to frame her for the leak. Then you sent Zenith data to Mark Reynolds. Why? Isabel's smile faltered, but she recovered fast. Nolan, you're misunderstanding. I was protecting the company. That intern was reckless. Enough, Nolan snapped, standing. The room seemed to shrink under his fury. You betrayed me 4 years ago, jumping ship to Reynolds's firm. I let it slide. But this, you didn't just hurt Halden. You destroyed an innocent person. Harper Lewis called out a trap in that contract, and you made her the scapegoat. Isabel's composure cracked. You don't have proof. Nolan slammed the report down. It's right here, server logs, emails, your whole damn plan. You're finished. Isabel's voice trembled. Nolan, you can't. I'm the best you've got. No, he said, his voice a blade. The best was the woman you ran off. Get out. As security escorted Isabel out, Nolan's rage gave way to guilt. He'd let Harper take the fall, watched her walk away, broken. He thought of her defiance, her quick wit, the way she'd called him out for reading contracts like poetry. His chest ached. He hadn't just made a mistake, he'd failed the one person who'd made him feel human. Harper stood outside the community center, the New Jersey dusk cool against her skin. The parking lot was empty except for a beat-up van, and the distant hum of traffic reminded her how far she was from Manhattan. She reread Daniel's email, her mind racing. If someone at Halden was investigating, it meant the truth was surfacing. But did she care? After Nolan's betrayal, the idea of going back felt like stepping into a lion's den. Her phone buzzed again, a news alert. Halden Corp CEO addresses leak scandal. Apologizes to wronged employee. She clicked the link, her breath catching. A video showed Nolan at a press conference, his voice steady but raw. We failed an employee who tried to protect us. Harper Lewis was unfairly terminated, and I take responsibility. I'm sorry. Harper's eyes stung, but she shut the phone off. A press conference doesn't fix shit, she muttered. She wanted to hate Nolan, to forget him. But his words echoed, I'm sorry. Part of her wondered if he meant it. Another part didn't care. She walked back inside, picking up a piece of chalk. The kids were gone, but their homework was pinned to the board clauses they'd found in ads, marked with questions. One read, Miss Harper, is this a trap? She smiled faintly, her resolve hardening. I'm not done, she whispered. Not yet. In Manhattan. Nolan stood by his office window, the city a blur. James entered, shaking his head. Sir, we checked Harper's old apartment. Neighbors say she and her mom moved out weeks ago. No trace. Nolan's fists clenched. Keep looking. Schools, non-profits, anywhere she might have gone. James hesitated. What if she doesn't want to be found? Then I'll find her anyway, Nolan said, his voice fierce. I owe her the truth. The 42nd floor of Halden Corp was a different beast when Harper Lewis walked back through its glass doors. The hum of printers and the clatter of keyboards were the same, but the air felt charged, like the office was holding its breath. 3 weeks ago, she'd been escorted out in disgrace, branded a traitor for a leak she didn't commit. Now, she was back temporarily. She told herself wearing a simple navy blazer she'd bought on sale, her flats polished for the first time in months. Her ponytail was tight, her eyes sharp, but her stomach churned. She wasn't here for redemption. She was here for the truth. Harper's return wasn't a hero's welcome. Co-workers glanced up from their cubicles, some with grudging respect, others with thinly veiled resentment. Greg, the Starbucks guy who'd dubbed her Goodwill chick, leaned against a printer, smirking. Back from the dead. Huh. Didn't think you'd show your face again. Missed your charm. Greg, Harper said, brushing past him. Go fetch a latte. A few paralegals snickered, and Greg's smirk faltered. Harper kept walking, her tote bag heavy with notes she'd compiled in New Jersey. After Nolan Halden's public apology and Daniel Voss's emailed evidence that Isabel Langley had framed her, Harper had spent days digging into the leak. Her findings pointed to a bigger player, Mark Reynolds, a rival CEO and Nolan's old friend, who'd orchestrated the Zenith data theft to sabotage Halden Corp. She'd sent the data to Daniel, expecting him to handle it, but Nolan had tracked her down at the community center in West Orange, begging her to return. We need you, Lewis, he'd said, his voice raw. I need you. She'd agreed, but not for him. For the kids she taught. For her mom. For every underdog who'd been screwed by people like Reynolds. Still, stepping back into Halden's world felt like walking into a snake pit. She headed to the conference room where Nolan had asked to meet, her heart pounding. The room was small, cluttered with legal pads and coffee cups. The Manhattan skyline, a gray blur through rain-streaked windows. Nolan stood by the table, his black suit crisp, but his face tired, shadows under his eyes. He looked up as Harper entered, and for a moment, his expression softened, a flicker of relief. Maybe, or something deeper. Harper ignored it, dropping her bag on the table. Let's make this quick. Halden, she said, her Brooklyn accent sharp. I'm not here for a reunion. What's the plan? Nolan gestured to a chair. Sit. We're suing Reynolds and his firm for corporate espionage. Your data's the backbone of our case. But we need more. I want you leading the prep. Harper stayed standing, arms crossed. An intern who got canned 3 weeks ago. Why not your fancy legal team? Because they missed what you caught, Nolan said, his voice steady. You called out 17.4B when nobody else did. You found Reynolds' fingerprints in the leak. You're the best I've got. Lewis, whether you like it or not. She scoffed, but her chest warmed, traitorous. Annoying warmth. Flattery won't fix what you did. Halden. Let's just work. He nodded, a hint of regret in his eyes, and they dove in. The table was a war zone of documents, server logs, email chains, financial records. Harper's notes, scribbled in her precise handwriting, outlined Reynolds's scheme. He'd used Isabel as a pawn, feeding her fake data to leak while he siphoned real Zenith patents to his firm. The stakes were high if they didn't stop him. Halden could lose the entire deal, and Reynolds would dominate the tech market. As they worked, a rhythm emerged. Nolan challenged her ideas, but listened when she pushed back. Harper caught herself relaxing, her guard slipping. At one point, she pointed out a vague clause in Reynolds's firm's contract with a supplier. This smells like a shell company, she said, circling it. Bet it's where he's hiding the stolen data. Nolan skimmed it, frowning. You sure could just be sloppy drafting. Harper smirked. In law, there's no such thing as sloppy. Every word's a weapon. Halden, you're a shitty lawyer, but you're one hell of a fighter. Let's dig. He laughed, a low, genuine sound that made her heart skip. You're a pain in my ass, Lewis, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Their eyes met, and Harper looked away, her face heating. Focus, girl. He's not your friend. But the late-night sessions reminded her of their Zenith contract days, before everything went to hell. Nolan wasn't just a suit. He was smart, driven, and, when he let his guard down, almost human. The next day, Harper joined a mock trial in Halden's training room, a mock courtroom with cheap wood paneling and fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry bees. The legal team was prepping for the Reynolds lawsuit, and Nolan had insisted she take the lead. Daniel Voss, the paralegal who'd sent her the server logs, was there, along with Elaine Carter and a few others. The room felt like a pressure cooker, everyone watching Harper like she might explode. "All right, Lewis," Elaine said, her gold-rimmed glasses glinting. "You're prosecuting. Convince us Reynolds is guilty." Harper stood at the front, her notes in hand, her blazer suddenly feeling too tight. She launched into her argument, laying out the evidence: Isabel's spoofed email, Reynolds's shell company, the stolen patents. Her voice was steady, her Brooklyn edge giving her words bite. "Reynolds didn't just steal data," she said, pacing. "He weaponized it to tank Halden's stock and grab Zenith's tech. He's a thief in a $5,000 suit. Nolan, playing the defense, fired back. That's a nice story, Lewis, but where's the proof? Your shell company's a theory, not a fact." Harper didn't flinch. "The proof's in the money trail. His firm wired $2 million to that supplier last month. Same day, the leak hit. Coincidence? Hell no." The room murmured, impressed. Daniel nodded, scribbling notes. Elaine's lips twitched, almost a smile. Nolan leaned back, his eyes gleaming. "Not bad, Lewis, but you're gonna need more than a hunch to bury Reynolds." "Then let me dig," Harper shot back. "Unless you're scared I'll show you up again." The team laughed, the tension breaking. Nolan grinned, a rare, unguarded moment that made Harper's stomach flip. "Keep talking like that, and I'll make you my lawyer, in your dreams." "Halden," she said, winking before she could stop herself. The room chuckled, and Harper blushed, focusing on her notes. "Get it together, Harper." The mock trial wrapped, and Elaine pulled her aside. "You're good. Lewis, don't let it go to your head. But we need you on this case." Harper nodded, stunned. For the first time since her firing, she felt a flicker of belonging. But as she left the room, Nolan's gaze lingered, and she knew it wasn't just about the case. That night, Harper was back in her element, a divey pizza joint in Brooklyn, the kind with sticky tables and a jukebox playing Springsteen. She'd invited Daniel to meet her, wanting to thank him for the server logs. The place smelled of grease and beer, and the neon sign outside buzzed faintly. Daniel slid into the booth, his glasses fogging from the cold. "Thanks for coming," Harper said, sliding a slice his way. "And for the email. You didn't have to stick your neck out." Daniel shrugged, picking at his pizza. "I should have done it sooner. I knew you didn't leak that data, but I was scared. My brother Richard, he's got a temper." "Yeah, I noticed." Harper said dryly. So why now? Daniel hesitated, then pulled out his phone, showing an email from Isabel's account, recovered from a deleted folder. It was dated a year ago, before Harper joined Halden. In it, Isabel wrote to Mark Reynolds, "Nolan's too clean. He turned down a bribe in college, cost me a scholarship. He'll never play dirty, so we need leverage." Harper's jaw dropped. Holy shit. She's been gunning for him since college. Daniel nodded. Nolan caught her cheating on a case back then. She lost everything. When she joined Halden, I think she saw you as a threat, someone Nolan trusted. So she framed you to hurt him. Harper leaned back, the revelation hitting hard. Nolan wasn't just a cold CEO, he'd chosen integrity once. At a cost. It explained why Isabel hated him, why she'd targeted Harper. "He never told me," she said softly. "He doesn't talk about it," Daniel said. "But he's different with you. I saw it in those Zenith sessions. He respects you." Harper's chest tightened. She wanted to dismiss it, to stay angry, but the truth was shifting under her feet. Nolan wasn't the enemy she'd painted him to be. "Thanks, Daniel," she said, her voice quiet. "This helps. Later." Harper and Nolan met at a bodega near her apartment in Flatbush. A last-minute plan to review new evidence over coffee. The place was cramped, with shelves of chips and a cat napping by the register. The air smelled of roasted beans and damp concrete from the rain outside. They sat at a tiny table, papers spread between them, the neon glow of a lotto sign casting shadows. "You didn't have to come to Brooklyn," Harper said, sipping her coffee. "Your suit's worth more than this whole block." Nolan smirked, loosening his tie. "I needed a break from Manhattan. Besides, your coffee's better than my office's." "Liar," Harper said, but she smiled. They worked through the evidence, their banter easy despite the tension. At one point, Nolan mentioned his father, a Wall Street shark who'd left his family for money. "He taught me control," Nolan said, his voice low. "But you make me question it." Harper paused, her pen hovering. "Don't get deep on me. Halden, I'm still mad at you." "I know," he said, meeting her eyes. "I fucked up, Lewis. I didn't see Isabel's game until it was too late. I'm sorry." She looked away, her throat tight. "Sorry's a start, but trust, that's harder." He nodded. No argument. They kept working, but the air had shifted, softer now. As Nolan left, Harper watched him go, his silhouette fading into the rain. "Maybe you're not the enemy," she whispered, her heart torn between anger and hope. The Manhattan courthouse was a beast of stone and steel, its marble halls echoing with the shuffle of loafers and the murmur of anxious voices. Inside courtroom 4B, sunlight streamed through tall windows, catching dust motes in the air and glinting off the polished wood of the judge's bench. Harper Lewis stood at the plaintiff's table, her navy blazer crisp, her ponytail tight, and her heart pounding like a subway train. Today was the culmination of weeks of work, Halden Corp's lawsuit against Mark Reynolds and his firm for corporate espionage. The evidence Harper had uncovered: server logs, shell companies, stolen Zenith patents, was airtight, but standing here, under the judge's stern gaze, she felt the weight of every doubt she'd ever carried. Nolan Halden sat behind her, his black suit immaculate, his presence steady but unobtrusive. He'd insisted she lead the case, a decision that had raised eyebrows among Halden's legal team. Elaine Carter, her supervisor, was in the gallery, her gold-rimmed glasses catching the light. Daniel Voss, the paralegal who'd risked his job to help her, scribbled notes nearby. Even Greg, the Starbucks guy who'd once called her Goodwill chick, was there, looking oddly subdued. The room buzzed with tension. Reporters in the back scribbling furiously, their ex-posts already lighting up with hashtags like #Halden vs. Reynolds. Harper adjusted her notes, her hands steady despite the nerves. She'd spent years dreaming of moments like this, standing in a courtroom, fighting for justice. But after Halden's betrayal, she'd almost given up. Now, here she was, not just fighting for a company, but for every kid like her who'd been told they didn't belong. She glanced at Nolan, catching his eye. He nodded. A silent, "You got this." Her chest warmed, but she pushed it aside. Focus. The judge, a gray-haired woman with a no-nonsense frown, called the court to order. Harper stepped forward, her voice clear, her Brooklyn accent giving her words an edge. "Your Honor, Halden Corp is here to prove that Mark Reynolds orchestrated a deliberate scheme to steal proprietary data and sabotage a $3 billion deal. He used a senior advisor, Isabel Langley, to frame an innocent employee, costing her job and reputation. We have server logs, financial records, and communications proving his guilt beyond doubt. Reynolds, a slick man in a $5,000 suit, smirked from the defense table, his lawyer launching into a counter-argument about circumstantial evidence and overzealous interns. Harper didn't flinch. She presented the shell company data, tracing $2 million in payments to Reynolds' firm, and played a recorded call recovered by Daniel where Reynolds instructed Isabel to bury the intern. The gallery gasped, and the judge's frown deepened. When Harper cross-examined Reynolds, the room crackled. "Mr. Reynolds," she said, her voice sharp. "You targeted Halden because you couldn't have the talent to outbid us for Zenith. So you stole instead. Care to explain why your firm received stolen patents the day of the leak?" Reynolds' face reddened, his charm slipping. "I don't know what you're talking about." Kid, Harper shot back, holding up a printout. "This email says you called me the intern problem. Guess I'm more trouble than you bargained for." The courtroom laughed, the judge banging her gavel. Nolan's lips twitched, pride flashing in his eyes. After 4 hours, the verdict came guilty on all counts. Reynolds' firm was ordered to pay $150 million in damages, and criminal charges were referred to the DA. The gallery erupted, reporters rushing out to break the news. Harper stood still, the weight lifting like a fog. She'd done it. Not just won a case, but exposed a fraud who'd tried to destroy her. Elaine approached, her voice grudgingly warm. "Hell of a job, kid. You're no rookie anymore." Daniel gave her a shy thumbs up. Greg, to her shock, muttered, "You're a damn beast." Lewis, before slinking off. Harper smiled, her heart full, but her eyes sought Nolan. He was by the door, watching her, a quiet intensity in his gaze that made her breath catch. That afternoon, Harper was back at the community center in West Orange, New Jersey, where the air smelled of chalk dust and fresh paint. She and Nolan had launched a free legal aid program for low-income students, a project born from her time teaching here after her firing. The center's classroom was packed with teenagers, their notebooks open, eager to learn about contracts and rights. Harper stood at the whiteboard, marker in hand, while Nolan, dressed down in a gray sweater and jeans, sat awkwardly at a desk, helping a kid draft a scholarship appeal. "Never sign anything you don't understand," Harper told the class, her voice warm but firm. Every clause could be a trap, like this ad. She held up a flyer for a phone plan, pointing to the fine print. Says free for a year, but locks you into a 3-year contract. Sneaky. Right. A girl with braids nodded. "That's some shady shit, Miss Harper. Language," Harper said, but she grinned. "You're not wrong. Though, stay sharp, and you won't get screwed." Nolan chuckled, looking up from his desk. "She's tough, but she's right. Kids, listen to her." A boy smirked. "Mr. Nolan, you her boyfriend or what?" The class erupted in laughter, and Harper's face heated. Nolan, unfazed, leaned back, working on it. "Kid, she's a tough sell. Keep dreaming." "Halden." Harper shot back, winking. The kids whooped, and she shook her head, hiding a smile. Working with Nolan here felt different, less like a CEO and intern, more like partners. Their late-night case prep had rebuilt a fragile trust, and moments like this, filled with easy banter, made her wonder if forgiveness was possible. After the class, Harper and Nolan stayed to clean up, stacking chairs under the flickering lights. The center was quiet, the kids gone, leaving behind the faint smell of cookies from the kitchen. Harper glanced at Nolan, catching him watching her. What she asked, brushing chalk dust off her hands. "You were incredible today," he said, his voice low. "In court. Here. All of it. I don't say it enough, but you're changing things." "Lewis?" She shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "Just doing my job. Somebody's got to keep the world honest." "Not just the world," he said, stepping closer. "Me. You make me better. Harper. I was a coward when I fired you. I'll never forgive myself for that." Harper's throat tightened. She wanted to stay mad, to hold on to the hurt, but his eyes, raw, unguarded, chipped away at her walls. "You're trying," she said softly. "That's something." He nodded, and they finished cleaning in silence, the weight of their unspoken feelings heavy in the air. That evening, Harper was home in her Flatbush apartment, a cozy shoebox with peeling wallpaper and a kitchen table that wobbled. Her mom, Mrs. Lewis, was in the living room, her arthritis eased by new meds covered by Harper's reinstated Halden benefits. The air smelled of marinara sauce and garlic bread, a rare homemade pizza night. Nolan had insisted on joining, showing up with a 6-pack of Brooklyn Lager and a sheepish grin. "You're late." "Halden," Harper said, opening the door. "Pizza's getting cold." "Traffic's a bitch," he said, stepping inside. "Brought beer to make up for it." Mrs. Lewis laughed from the couch. "I like him. Harper, he's got better manners than your last boss." Low bar. "Mom," Harper said, rolling her eyes. They sat around the table, the pizza greasy and perfect, the conversation easy. Nolan, usually so buttoned up, loosened up, joking about his terrible cooking skills and dodging Mrs. Lewis's teasing about his fancy CEO life. You gotta laugh louder. Nolan, Mrs. Lewis said, winking. Harper likes her men funny. Mom Harper groaned, tossing a napkin at her. Nolan chuckled, catching Harper's eye, and for a moment, the world narrowed to just them. After dinner, Harper and Nolan stepped onto the fire escape, the Brooklyn night cool and alive with distant sirens and laughter from a nearby bar. The skyline glittered in the distance, a reminder of the city they'd both fought. Nolan leaned against the railing, a beer in hand, his sweater softening his usual sharpness. You ever think about leaving? He asked, glancing at her. This city, starting over somewhere else? Harper sipped her beer, the bottle cold against her lips. Thought about it when I got fired. But Brooklyn's home. It's messy, loud, and kinda smells. But it's mine. You, he shrugged. Manhattan's my cage. Built Halden to prove I could. But it's lonely up there. You change that. She raised an eyebrow. Don't get sappy. Halden, I'm still not signing your love contract. He laughed, the sound warm, fair. But I'm serious. Lewis, you didn't just save my company. You saved me. Harper's heart skipped, but she played it cool. Saved you, I just said. This clause is a trap. You did the rest. Bullshit, he said, stepping closer. You made me see what matters. Truth, not power. I don't deserve you. But I'm asking anyway. He pulled a small notebook from his pocket, handing it to her. Inside was a handwritten note. For the woman who showed me truth is worth fighting for. No traps, no clauses, just us. Harper's eyes stung, but she smirked. You're still a shitty lawyer. Nolan. Yeah, he said, his voice soft. But I'm your shitty lawyer. Harper. She laughed, and he pulled her close, their lips meeting under the Brooklyn stars. It wasn't a movie moment, just two people, flawed and real, choosing each other. Days later, Harper was back at Halden Corp, now a senior legal counsel. She'd turned down a corner office, staying on the 42nd floor with its humming photocopiers and coffee stains. Fancy desks don't make you honest, she'd told Elaine. She led a team revising Halden's contracts, rooting out traps like 17.4b, and pushed for reforms due process for employees, diversity in hiring. Her blog, the fine print, went public. Her story of surviving Halden inspiring thousands on X. Comments poured in. You're a hero. Harper. Keep fighting the suits. One evening, Harper sat in her apartment, her mom napping on the couch, the TV muttering. She opened her laptop, drafting a new post. The law isn't perfect, but it's ours to fix. Fight for truth, even when it hurts. It's worth it. She hit publish, her heart full. Nolan texted dinner tonight. My treat. She replied, only if it's pizza. You're still on probation. Halden. His response, a laughing emoji, made her smile. Harper stepped onto the fire escape, the city alive below. She wasn't just a lawyer or Nolan's partner. She was Harper Lewis, the girl from Flatbush who'd faced the world and won. Truth wasn't a clause, it was her life. Yo, Soul Stories, fam. That's Harper's story. Y'all a Brooklyn badass who fought for truth and found love in the chaos. From calling out a shady clause to kicking corporate ass in court. She showed us what it means to stand tall. If this hit you right in the heart, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment. What's your fight for justice? Share it below. And let's keep it real. Join the Soul Stories crew. And let's keep these raw, honest stories coming. Peace, y'all.